instance, I mean, just like, say, witnessing UFOs or anything else. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't go outside of their comfort zone. A lot of people sort of stay in their area. They don't leave their town or their city or anything else. Although I will tell you, when it comes to cryptid sightings, depending on the size of your town, whether you leave it or not may have very little to do with whether or not you actually encounter like a Bigfoot or Mothman or whatever else, because they love to exist sort of in those liminal places between civilization and wilderness. So like Woodstock, Illinois is a great example of this. It's a relatively small city. It's surrounded by nature preserves and wetlands and fields, and so it's sort of the perfect spot to see something unusual like that. And there was that little flat down there earlier this year where suddenly, just out of nowhere, people just going about their business started seeing this Mothman-like entity. I mean, the guy who had the first sighting down there was literally just driving home from Walgreens. I mean, if you couldn't make up a more boring thing to be doing when you see Mothman. Like, he had just had to go to the drugstore one evening to pick something up real quick and was just driving home when he sees this thing cross in front of his car. And so it's details like that, honestly, that lend a certain credibility, I think, to these reports, other than the fact that when I spoke to this guy, like, you couldn't fake the kind of fear that it was very obvious he felt, But beyond that, just these little mundane details, just driving home from Walgreens and you run into Mothman, But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you're right. Like, most people, they aren't paying a whole lot of attention. One thing that I like to mention to people, because a lot of them don't think about it, how often do you look up? Like, nobody ever looks up. I'm usually the one guy, like the one weirdo on my street who will be walking his dog, and it's nighttime, and I'm just looking up. I'm just admiring the stars and seeing what's going on up there. But generally speaking, people don't do that. There could be a flying saucer just following most people around in the sky all day, and they'd never see it.
Well, because you know what? They're living in a shadow world. I mean, their whole life just basically revolves going to work, coming home, eating dinner, watching TV, and then repeating, and maybe on the weekend they go out and do something. But they don't, most people, aren't going to look up at trees at night as they're walking or look at the stars. No, even I don't. Occasionally when I go out of my house, I'll sit down next to our pond, and I'll look at the trees, and I'll look at the sky at night, and look at the stars. But I'll tell you, if a person sees a cryptic of any kind, Mothman, Bigfoot, whatever, and if they actually saw one, it is something that they will live with them till they die. And I can honestly tell you, I was in the military. Okay, I had people shooting at me. I had to worry about survival. And I was scared. And I'll use the word scared shitless. And I can tell you, when I had my encounter around 2002, right around there, of a cryptic creature, you know what? That was more scary than anything I ever had to deal with in the military. Or even in the marriage, some of the marriages I was in the past. I'll tell you, it was the most scariest thing that it's when you see something that doesn't supposed to exist. It scares you. It terrifies you. I mean, and it doesn't go away. And then, when you do share it with people, they go, They don't believe you. Especially, I'll tell you, people doing investigating there's two types.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there who investigate trying to sell a book, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, sure.
They're not a real investigator. Or you get the other people out there, they're so narrow-minded that they only believe that a cryptic of whatever their subject, what they're, researching is what they make up in their own mind what it is. And maybe that's why they don't see these cryptic creatures, because they're too narrow-minded. You have to be open. And in a case like what I ran into, I wasn't looking for anything. I was out in the deep woods up in the Canadian Rockies, and I found something I wish I never found in my life. And it still haunts me. It really does. And we're talking how many years. And it still, I'll have nightmares about it because it scared me. It terrifies me. And then I hear all these other so-called experts come on my show or other shows. And honestly, I know from my experience what I saw. They can come up with their conclusions, their stories, or whatever. And I can look at them to myself and I go, you know what? You guys don't even know what you're doing. Because they're so narrow-minded. But there is things out there, seriously, that we don't know what they are. And with the government now coming out and basically saying there might be UFOs, and we've probably been lying to you about it for who knows how long. But it makes me realize, I think there is other things on this planet we're not prepared for. Because if you grew up in a city or a small town, you're not looking for a Mothman or a Bigfoot or whatever. Now, I will say, because our magnetic field is changing, right? Mm-hmm. I think our planet is tilted a little bit. I think Earth changes, our climate changes is going on. People are starting to see, if they live in certain areas, maybe big birds like pelicans flying at night, and they look at them as something else because they don't know, they haven't seen a pelican, for example, in their area ever. And all of a sudden they see something like that, of a bird flying at night with big wings. Their mind plays tricks. I don't know if you get those type of reports too, but I think with all this stuff going on,
definitely do.
Yeah, I just think with all this stuff going on, we're starting to see some things on our own planet that is explainable. But I think there's things out there that, it's not explainable. Do I believe a Mothman exists? I don't know. Who knows? I mean, we're going back hundreds of years even. In Arizona, the Indians reporting these like devil creatures that were like 6, 7 feet, 8 feet tall, wings flying from the cliffs and coming out of caves and flying. I mean, these stories go back so long.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right on all accounts. Honestly, first of all, like anybody who especially is a self-described expert in this field is full of it, frankly. There are two kinds of people who will tell you they know the truth in the paranormal industry, and they are con men and crazy people, and that's it. Because the rest of us know you can't be an expert in this because we don't even know what we're dealing with. We can speculate. We all have different theories, but at the end of the day, none of us really knows, honestly. The only thing that we really know is that we have no idea really what we're dealing with. Anybody who tells you different is like I said, is lying or needs professional help.
Oh, yeah. But unfortunately, Tobias, there's a lot of people, especially I'm going to get in trouble on this, but like the Bigfoot community. Okay, I won't even bring hardly any of those people on my show anymore because they are convinced their own way what they think these things are and why they haven't been seen and stuff like that. And you know what? You got to have an open mind on this type of stuff. all of it. Otherwise, one could be staring you at the face and you'll never see it. I mean, how can somebody sit there and figure a pattern out of a Mothman or example of a Bigfoot when we don't know? We don't have no idea other than reports or people who claimed, including me, that they saw one of those things. I mean, unless you actually seen one, what are you going to do? You're going to just go by what somebody else said, who had heard it from somebody else and heard it from somebody else. And they believe their theories so strong, which, and then if you come out there, honestly, and yeah, James, I just read your little thing here on chat, warm, fuzzy orbs, laughing out loud. Okay. But yeah, I will say there's a community out there on Bigfoot. They think that Bigfoot, talk to you, telepathically. And they give off orbs, and they're here to serve man, and they're loving creatures. How can anybody even think that? We don't know. And again, I brought this up on my show even last night. How many people have gone missing in the forest in the last 100 years? We're talking tens of thousands of people have gone vanishing. Or the people, right, all across this country that just vanish with no trace. They maybe were going to work or maybe going to the grocery store or they're going to go camping and there's no trace of them. FBI has so many tens of thousands of reports of missing people that they can't even track it down because there's no way to, because they're gone. Now, what's happening to these people?
I wish I knew, honestly. Could there be some aspect of, paranormal phenomena, be that, Bigfoot or UFOs or aliens or anything else involved? I mean, sure. It's difficult for me to make the case for any of those without sort of, committing the fallacy of arguing from ignorance. Just because I don't know what's causing it doesn't mean it has to be one of those things. But I mean, it could be. Who knows, really? It's interesting too. I think probably, best case scenario. I think that assuming, that Bigfoot, for just as an example, is like just assuming that Bigfoot represents a population of creatures, be they biological or spiritual or interdimensional or whatever, but just a population of creatures. Why would they be, or why should they be so different from mankind that all of them would behave the same? Certainly, man is capable of extremely charitable, good acts, but the other side of that coin is man is also capable of some of the most disgusting evil imaginable. And so why should it be different with anybody else? Why should Bigfoot be different? Why should ET be different? Why should any of it be any different than that, So I think that if I was, speaking to an experiencer who was relating to me their personal experience of something that they were describing as a telepathic contact with Bigfoot or something, and if I found them generally to be of sound mind and relatively credible, then I think what my argument would be, or at least the idea that I would want to express to them, would be that, okay, so you had, say, this experience with one creature that frankly you don't even know what it was. Maybe it was Bigfoot. We don't even know what that means. But you had this experience with this one creature. There's no reason to make another fallacy. Commit another logical fallacy by committing a fallacy of composition and saying that just because you had this one encounter or even multiple encounters with this one creature